Monkeypox!
Fucking monkeypox. What are we gonna do? I'm telling you, I think there's almost 24 people reportedly with monkeypox right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ben Stewart Podcast, and I'm not here to downplay what's happening in the world. Gordo and I are really here to bring better perspective and then also treat it the way that it should be treated. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of high tensions. I'm sure you heard what just happened in Texas, but what we're going to get into today is monkeypox. We're going to talk a little bit about Davos, and we're going to take some questions from you all here on the Ben Stewart Podcast. So let's just hop the fuck into it. So, Gordo, first question: is monkeypox real?
Yeah, we're in the hot seat. Damn. I mean, it's definitely real. It's an over 50-year-old disease, but is the hype real?
Pictures really of monkeypox?
I mean, I've only seen a few ones that were with these poor kids who have all these bumps on them, but I don't know, man. I mean,
I've seen a bunch of pictures of and I know that you can just find this stuff or fake this stuff, but I have seen a bunch of pictures and a lot of claims saying that a lot of the pictures that are being shared around are actually older pictures of smallpox. And it is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you heard, but Belgium started doing the quarantining again for monkeypox. And not sure how this is really shaping up. It looks like there aren't many cases here in the States. But did you watch that video? Because all I saw was that very intro for Russell Brand screaming about
it's good. We'll play a few little highlights just to give people a little bit of the context of what's kind of happening with monkeypox, because this could become very big, or it could just be overhyped. But right now it seems like there's a lot of indications saying people are trying to I don't know. There's a lot of over sensationalizing, it seems like, essentially.
Hello there, you 5.6 million awakening wonders. Together we voyage towards truth and light in a world that would have us dim, dumb, numb, continually spellbound, hypnotized by screens like the one you're looking at right now. But I only told you to look at this so I could tell you to look away from this. If you're not a subscriber to this channel yet, please subscribe now before monkeypox consumes you. Only 60% of people are currently subscribed, and I want to hear your comments below on everything, but in particular, the monkeypox phenomena. Some people will think already that monkeypox is being exaggerated and inflated to create economic opportunity and to introduce new regulation. Other people will say that monkeypox is being used to inflate ideas around conspiracy, to corral people into states of suspicion and cynicism. So let's have a look at how monkeypox is being reported on right now.
Tonight, an unprecedented global spread of monkeypox has the CDC on alert.
Now to the growing concern over the monkeypox virus.
A leading advisor to the World Health Organization described the unprecedented outbreak of monkeypox.
What we can point out already is that there is a degree of hysteria. Even if the ongoing news report goes on to tell you things like, oh, it's not that bad, we're already seeing that it's being ubiquitously reported. Imagine, if you can for a moment, a world where we hadn't just had that 2-year pandemic, the subsequent lockdowns, the mandates, the confusion, the doubt and uncertainty that came with the 2 years we have just endured collectively. One thing I think is fantastic about it is all of us understand what I mean by that. To a degree, all of us have endured and encountered the same experience, even though we will, of course, see it differently because we have different priorities, different fears, different concerns, different attitudes towards authority, different attitudes towards health, different...
All right, so I'm going to skip a little bit of his great rants we all love, just to hit some of the hard data here.
Cases of monkeypox in a dozen countries, including here in the United States.
On to monkeypox now.
On to monkeypox. They're already enjoying monkeypox.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a key little point to make a few notes on. Just the fact that there is this kind of like orgasmic quality to the news reporters wanting this to be a story because it kind of validates their existence in a lot of ways. And so I think this is a problem when we incentivize, media, sort of yellow jaw journalism. Like, this is what happens. I mean, you get people wanting these things to be true, essentially, especially in the news media.
Have you seen Don't Look Up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, what's her name? Jennifer Lawrence?
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio. It's that film where they are meteorologists. I guess meteorologist is more the weather guy, but like anyway, they're
astrologists, I believe. They look at the stars because
Yeah.
they see the meteor first. Yeah.
Astronomers. So
Astronomers,
anyway,
yes.
they see the meteor and they're trying to go on all these talk shows, and the talk shows only seem to have, the talk show hosts only have like one mode, if you will.
Yeah.
And that mode is ratings and sales and keeping you, into the story until the story is done and then moving it along to the next story. That's everything that you just showed me and everything that I've seen previously. It really just feels like it's these people's jobs, and it's making it more difficult to even know, is there really a concern? Should there be a concern? Is this desensitizing us to what is concerning and what's not concerning? Because it almost seems like it makes everything flat, right? Like Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the face is just as powerful a story as monkeypox, and this thing in I'm forgetting the name of the
Mama, the meteorite?
No,
Or wait, no.
the place in Texas where the shooting just happened.
Oh yeah, Uval or Ville. It's Hispanic sounding.
Something. And that's a big story. But when you see how the media treats all these stories, everything is so sensationalized that it's almost like when you're listening to an album and all the instruments are cranked to 10 the entire way through it.
Right.
It allows for no dynamism. There's no dynamic between, there's nowhere that you can go from 10 except down. And that seems like that's where
They trap themselves. I mean, they're
where the news media is, because then everything becomes so highly sensationalized that a squirrel out on the street getting hit by a car,
everything's breaking news. Everything's breaking news.
Everything's breaking news.
Right. And that's what's this boys cried wolf. You've seen this slow deterioration, especially within cable news, and it's bleeded out everywhere. But back 30 years ago, and Rogan was just talking about this, but when they introduced music, this dun 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 dun, when they introduced breaking news, it was all about creating a sense of urgency. Urgency. Is your child dead? Tonight. Find out. It's the way they use these clever words and how they're framed to create urgency, to create, I have to see this or else I'm a bad person or my child might die. It created this level of manicness, panic and manic anxiety within everyone. And especially, I'm really not trying to be ageist here, but especially people who really grew up with a better version of that cable news in the more boomer and older generation. I think they still had this loyalty to it, but they didn't realize how much it was kind of like really making them manic in a lot of ways on both sides, because the entire business model changed from more just, I'm here with the news, I'm Dan Rather, and we're just telling you more objectively, empirically what's happening. We're not telling you our opinions. And it became all about the opinions. It became all about sensationalism. And you can go into the whole Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi, and you can look at the rise of Rupert Murdoch and him changing things with Fox News and making it sexier and showing, women's lower legs who are anchors and stuff, and all these little things on both sides. But they enslave themselves to this system, kind of like becoming a slave to the algorithm with YouTubers, and their business model doesn't allow the level of flexibility. It's such a rigid one to where they're screwed. I mean, you saw how bad of a bust CNN Plus was. You see that there's a lot of people kind of leaving the ship early and getting out. Main anchors and hosts have left and started their own things. So they're going to do what they're going to do. It's sad that they're not trying to course correct. You see new ownership coming in certain places, but ultimately they can't compete with this new authentic way of reaching people. But this is kind of what they love. I mean, honestly, they love this shit. I mean, they love Trump. It was great for ratings. They love a global pandemic. They love a war. It bleeds, it leads. So a little bit more. Or go ahead if you want to make a comment.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that, there's this book called The Master Switch. by Tim Wu, and he kind of goes through the whole history of broadcast and communication in Hollywood, and really just bringing through audio and audio-visual mediums, bringing to you news stories, bringing to you shows, entertainment, TV, basically just everything that's happened since the dawn of, I think Thomas Edison was one of the first to create the video camera or the film camera. And so looking at this, what's interesting is like, I just keep going back to the fourth turning. And as all this technology was coming in, we had the Green New Deal and not the Green New Deal, the New Deal with Roosevelt. And after World War II, there was this high period because the war is over, we can get back to normal. And I feel like we, from the beginning of this turning with the high into the awakening, into the unraveling, and now we're back in the crisis, we can look behind us and it seems like there was all this long history of broadcast and long history of media, when really it's not a long history. I mean, it goes back to theater, and it goes, that goes back ages. But what I'm starting to see is, what we're noticing with news and everything that we started just talking about there, Gordon, is what happens after a while. News is how many decades old? And when I'm talking
since TV,
about
broadcast TV, since television. It was
like there's print for sure, and it goes from before that. But the industry of it has changed radically in the past, just half a century or more. Yeah. Definitely like 70 years or more. And I guess the grand point that I'm driving at is the financial class and the algorithms have started dictating where these things go. The reason why I brought up Tim Wu's The Master Switch is because he put in there, and I'll see if I can find it somewhere around here, where, no, I guess oh yeah. So, I didn't even write out all of it, but he was talking about lately, everything is about these new archetypal figures that stick out in people's minds. Like since 2005, the highest budget films, like 2005 King Kong, $207 million. 2007 Spider-Man 3, $258 million. 2006 Superman Returns, $232 million. 2008 Quantum of Solace, $230 million. Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, $225 million. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, $250 million. And Avatar, and that's $237 million in 2009. The interesting thing, the point that he's driving at here, is he goes through a list that's 5 times longer than what I just shared with you. Mm-hmm. And he shows that with the exception of Avatar being like brand new character, you'll have Wolverine, you'll have Spider-Man, you'll have Batman, you'll have King Kong, you'll have a lot of the same characters that we've been seeing, since comic books. Again, another 50, 60, 70 years ago. And the reason for that is the financial class, through their algorithms, have found that it is much more of a sure thing to take what people already expect, these old characters, and just put a new actor in there.
Regurgitate.
There was that new Batman movie, which wasn't bad, right? The new Batman movie, but that's just on the heels of who was the last Batman? Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Right. And like they're going to keep doing this over and over and over again until these are almost like gods and deities in the future. They'll look back upon this era and say that these were who we worshipped, the gods and the mythic gods and the wars with them. And look, everyone was buying these comic books and reading into these stories. They all believed in it. And I guess what I'm seeing here is that with the news and where news has gone, when you said it started adding in the music and everything became urgent, everything is this algorithm being like, what works? Let's take away the 80% of shit that doesn't seem to work, and let's hyper amplify the 20% of stuff that seems to work. we haven't lived in this kind of a scenario before, where we are rapidly just taking out things that aren't even that old, but by today's standards, the old Walter Cronkite, or even the smoking a cigarette while doing, a broadcast, that very formal, not hyper alarmist way of giving the news is of a bygone era. Now it's more like influencers twirling their hair, making jokes about whatever, other side of the aisle they're on. It's just kind of interesting how it does seem like the movie Idiocracy and several other of these films, they're picking up on a trend and a trajectory. Right. And they're just showing you, well, if we keep going in this trajectory, I mean, I only see Idiocracy as being our future. And that's why these things, it starts to get kind of sad.
It's sad, but I agree with you, but I'll push back in the way that I think it's only true if we allow that path to play out uncontested, right? So Idiocracy is an example. If we continue on with this certain, like, if cable news dictated and ran all society, we'd be really fucked. If we didn't have, the Russell Brands, the Rogans, the Hughes, all these independent media, the breaking points saying, okay, we see what you guys see, right? This is a terrible business model. It's broken. They're not really doing news the way it should be done in a modern digital age. People will, this is the idea of the free market or populism, or just people trusting in people saying, hey, I've realized what you're saying and this is stupid and I've turned it off. And they go to new outlets that produce the new, modern, evolved, adapted type of news that you're talking about. But if you stay tapped into that old system, then it will become like Idiocracy, or it will become like George Orwell's 1984. If you allow authoritative measures to be uncontested, then that will happen. I think those books were warnings. I mean, it's a warning of, hey guys, like, wake the F up. If you don't like course correct in some ways and realize some of these absurdities in society, then we're gonna run into this type of society, and before you know, we're gonna be like, yeah, like, wait, what? Like, and I think this is another concern with the idea of the metaverse, where like I see some goods in the metaverse, but I also see, like, if it's abused, if it's used purely for escapism and advertising and all the worst like dystopian movies where they show that, then yeah, that's a possibility. That's a probability. I mean, there's probabilities of all types of things happening, but it's what do we as a group shift?
Several of them are going to come to pass simultaneously.
Some will, some won't. Yeah, I mean, but we have a choice as a collective of what we allow to come to pass more than others. And sometimes we got to own it and be like, yeah, we allowed this to come to pass. Well, we got to own that. But there's a lot of people who don't want to own it, and that's the first step. I mean, there's a lot of people in that very business who are like, this is my identity. I've become vested in this type of model, and just like do not want to see the writing on the wall. And that's in a lot of institutions right now. I mean, frankly, and that's why so many people are like, hey, like, we see it. Why don't you? And I think they're blinded by their own, yes men in their bubble. But a little bit more just to hit on Monkeypox. We'll keep things moving because we're going to make this like a short, punchy show, hit some concise things and big stories right now. Russell, let me play a few more key things and then we'll kind of jump to the next story.
Does anyone else feel yelled at by Russell in a nice way, in like the nicest way?
He is, bro. He's waking us up. That's his whole thing. Wake up and stay free.
I need to lean back in my seat a little bit, like he's leaning through the screen at me.
I mean, he's at an evolution. It seems like he's ready to step up mode. Like he seems like he's energized.
I think he's great, by the way.
So here's a little bit more of the highlights, just of some of the key articles he hits on.
Kit Yates, a prominent member of Independent Sage, tweeted that we would soon be hearing the "it's time we learn to live with monkeypox" takes from politicians who have stopped giving a fuck about public health. On the other extreme, Mahid Nawaz claimed that the global palace coup will soon see an attempt to bring in new lockdowns in line with the proposed WHO pandemic treaty, and pointed to Microsoft founder Bill Gates' prediction in November 2021 that the next pandemic would come from smallpox, to which monkeypox is related. One thing I think we can share is a general sense of mistrust in authority. And I think that this mistrust has been well earned by those in power. The profits gleaned from the pandemic, the mishandling of the regulations and lockdowns, the inability to point to direct correlation between effective lockdowns and lower fatalities all suggest that we should be more discerning when it comes to future regulations. Why would we hand over our personal freedom to unelected, centralized globalist movements? Why would any of us do that? The thing that I keep returning to mentally is transparency and democracy. Did I vote for it? Do I have access to all of the facts? If I have access to all of the facts and I voted for it, I'm up for it. But if I don't, then why should I be?
Let's quick ad break. You make some key points there, and I think this is another key thing of just an overwhelming trend I see within general society of, I think people, I don't know. It seems like people are becoming more and more disenfranchised with the political process and the political parties. But there's a shared general sense of like, yeah, but we're all about transparency. We're all about accountability. But like, I don't have a fucking political party. Like, I feel like I'm politically homeless. And a lot of people just feel like there's a lot of shared sentiment, values, and key things that has been exposed, but they don't know exactly where is the best place to use this energy. Because I feel like the place it's supposed to go is part of the problem. So you're seeing, direct action and things, but the key thing that Russell's really good at, and just kind of, we'll jump back there, is just, and whenever you try to talk to somebody, I try to keep this in mind, like just finding that common ground. You might be politically different, but like you both believe in transparency, or you both believe in, accountability for corruption on whatever side. So there is a lot of shared ground. There really is with most people. I really tend to find that when you take the labels out, when you don't like say like, well, what are you, Democrat or Republican? Like just say like, do you believe in transparency in this? Then you work from there, and I don't know, you tend to find more magic happens from that place.
Yeah.
So the big connection he makes here is that there is a connection between monkeypox and smallpox.
Headline.
And then there's a financial angle, obviously, of people who are vaccine makers of those benefiting from this as well.
Together over the sudden outbreaks of monkeypox in countries where no cases have been reported for years. The nervousness generated by the emergence of COVID-19 awakened the desire to acquire vaccines and drugs among several first world governments. Our adaptability as a species is our great gift. We have adapted to conditions all over the world that have made us flourish. But the pressure to conform as a human being is one of the greatest pressures we know. That means that once we've been conditioned to respond in a particular way, we, without thinking, assume that that's the correct way to respond in subsequent scenarios that resemble what we've already encountered. Something like monkeypox could be treated as another pandemic that requires strong regulation, lockdowns, etc., and provides opportunity for pharmaceutical companies to make profit from potentially mandated medicines. To treat cases of smallpox, the Food and Drug Administration has approved a couple of drugs that could be used for this variant of the virus. Let's see what Pfizer and the FDA have to say about the need some
So
sort of medicine.
of course he starts tying into the angle of Pfizer and Big Pharma, obviously wanting this, not speculating or saying, any conspiracy theory here, but just the basic fact that like, look, Big Pharma would benefit from this obviously happening. So you see a conflict of interest between the Gates Foundation, he touches on.
From Nick Bearden, Director of Global Justice Now. Right from the start, Pfizer was clear that it wanted to make a lot of money from COVID.
This is more on COVID. So, and then lastly, the World Economic Forum is a key little thing he points to here. But you obviously know that, well, the WHO, World Health Organization, is their number one founder is the United States. Number two founder is the Gates Foundation, which is basically Bill Gates. And then three is the UK. But clearly, we've seen this conflict of interests that have led many people to say, why in any rational place would we be okay with this person having so much say over public health policy when he has zero background and goodwill? But so obviously he's got his hands and tentacles all over this one as well. And lastly, this will be a nice little transition over to Davos 22. Those fine gentlemen are stoked and doing shenanigans involved with this as well.
It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet, and once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
Now, obviously, Albert.
Imagine the compliance. That's just such a
fascinating how similar this is.
That's such a power boner, dude. He's like, imagine the compliance.
Yeah.
Imagine how much compliance is the term. Like, you mean power, bro? Like,
Yeah, and what he's talking about there is the Internet of Bodies that's connecting your medication, things that you can ingest, implant, put inside the body or on the body to trace and track humans. They got to make it look sexy, but they don't even have to try that hard. You know, the fact that there really is this side of this man-made intentional political divide between people. I sent you 3 things through the chat that maybe we could, you know, put up on screen. One is about Davos, but there's something where it's like all you got to do is have somebody like Trump in office that, you know, highly polarizes the country, and then you just make anything that people who seem to like Trump are into, it's easy to make that the problem. And again, I feel like there's heaps of problems with Trump, and I don't know what would happen to the country if he got back in office, but I don't think it would be much. Honestly, I don't see much difference, to be perfectly honest, between the previous administration, this one, the one before that. I don't see that much of a difference. There's a couple like bullet points you can point towards. But the main point that I'm trying to make here, though, is that there are those on the political left that seem to be screaming for globalization, and many of them I had come into contact with and I was talking with back when I made Kymatica, back in like 2009, 2008 time period, and they were all on board like there's this globalization thing that's happening, we can't let it happen. And then all of a sudden, all you got to do is spin the narrative a little bit, and if you're anti-globalization, then you're automatically pro-Trump, right? You know, there's all these like, you know, neat little categories that you get placed in. And that's what I'm pointing out here with this World Economic Forum push towards the Internet of Bodies, is there do seem to be these groups that if you have a problem with the World Economic Forum, then all of a sudden you must be in the queue. You must think the world is flat. There's all these labels.
Soon it's going to be on as soon as it's going to be on the signs, you know, water is life, science is real. Davos is, you know, I don't know the catchy branding, but like, I mean, Davos is king. I mean, like there is this, I mean, there is very much a cult mentality to this, and people who have been in cults, there's a comedian I really like named Kurt Metzger, who does funny stand-up with Kyle Dunnigan, and he was in a cult growing up, and he, you know, immediately, Rogan talks about this, was saying, you know, he was calling it from day one, like when you can't, like, this is, I think it was a Mormon or Jehovah's Witness, but he was saying a lot of this woke stuff was very culty. You know, it was very much don't ask questions, don't, you know, just believe what we say, no pushback, just accepting the status quo and the party line. And yeah, and you know, it is what it is, but the bottom line is we're susceptible to programming, we're susceptible to cult like ideologies, we're susceptible even more in times of fear. So right now it's all about getting us into this extreme states of fear and legitimate fears, like World War III is legitimate fear. You know, there's a lot of legitimate fears, but how much is it being exacerbated by people who have the ability to also reduce these things, you know? And that's where it gets. That's
the point. You're spot on, because the thing is you don't even really need World War III. You need the threat of it to last in people's hearts, guts, and minds for a couple of years, while you extract more wealth, while you, you know, use this as a, like, well, things could get a lot worse, guys. You know, World War III is literally right around the corner. So you use the fear of it for a long time, and you don't even need to actually wage World War III. You don't even need another, like, literal world war like we had back in the early 1900s. You don't need that. You just need the threat of it. You know, this is where the stories come in. Can you pull up?
You said you sent it in the chat. In the Skype chat, I'm not seeing it. Which chat?
You're not seeing it in the Skype chat? Hold on. Oh, I gotta press send. That works. Right. Yeah. So pull one of them up.
Okay,
right
Josh.
There. Okay. Josh Fox.
Oh, hang on. I gotta share my screen though. One sec. Give me a sec. How am I going to do this quickly? Download it. See to download it. All right. Keep talking, or just set it up while I'm pulling it up.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, so Josh Fox, I like this guy, and I haven't had the best interactions with him. Back in the day when I was living in Pennsylvania, he made this film about literally my very backyard, very neck of the woods. Marcellus Shale is all throughout the Appalachians going through Pennsylvania. And that's where a lot of the fracking started. So he made the film Gasland. And it was incredible, you know, for activism. And then all of a sudden, it's not like I don't expect this, and I don't even mind having different views from people. He, you know, he then started going into like, if you don't get the jab, then you're anti-science. And I pushed back on that. I was like, you know, how about you just have a different way of approaching health? And he just went off on that. He ignored me, but then he posted something else that was like, I'm so surprised that all these people that were, you know, activists back in the day are so anti-science, pro-Trump, and white supremacist. And to me, like, I was trying not to just pretend that that was about what I had just called him out on. But like, what I've found is like, I don't not follow him anymore. I still follow him, and I see all these, you know, a black card with white letters that he posts up there, probably from his Twitter page. And there's a difference I want to point out. So I can't really.
So sorry. Two of the image, or this is the only image that I was saying was allowing me to show. I didn't have permission for the other two.
Oh, what? You kidding me?
To show it, but I can still try and maybe screen share. I can also pull up his Twitter, or his Instagram. I guess it's older.
Well, let me just say what it says, because it's just basically, it's just a card. It says, I do not understand a country that will create laws to protect clumps of unborn cells called fetuses, but will do absolutely nothing to stop actual living, breathing children from being shot in schools. So I just want to break down this comment, because I understand where he's coming from. That's the first thing I want to say. I understand where he's coming from, but he's doing this straw man thing. And if anyone who doesn't understand what straw manning is you basically, you take somebody's argument, you make the worst possible, the most degrading possible copy of it, and then you argue against the copy that you made, not the actual argument. And that's why there's a difference between, Eric Godsey just posted on this. The opposite is steel manning, where when somebody makes an argument, instead of trying to make their argument sound the dumbest, you come up with how you can understand where they're coming from, and you can agree, and you try and lift their argument up as much as possible, because your intent is not to make them look stupid, it's to lift it up as much as you can. But if there is a higher logic, then you're not attacking them, which is yet again another logical fallacy called ad hominem, where you're attacking somebody's character rather than the argument that they're making. So the first thing he says is, I don't understand a country that will create laws to protect clumps of unborn cells called fetuses. Imagine that, the way he's talking about the brilliance of what's happening as these clumps of unborn cells, as he's saying, like degrading that into something that just sounds like gross, disgusting, not the majesty of life, not this ultimate mystery that we still haven't figured out. He's bringing it down to this level in order to make a comparison to the other side of the aisle that's saying, like, you know, you want to protect these unborn clump of, you know, dead cells that mean nothing to us. They're absolutely grotesque and horrific, you know, and that's me straw manning him, if you can't tell. Like, that's me adding on and bringing his argument down, you know. And the other side of it is these same people that want to protect unborn, you know, clumps of unborn cells, they care nothing about living, breathing children being shot in schools. So that's the breaking it down into the actual arguments. And the one thing I want to say, I don't know if you're seeing me anymore. Like, the one thing I want to say about this is, I like Josh Fox. And even though I highly disagree with 99% of everything that I see in his feed, I love the fact that he's passionate. I see there's a difference between the stuff that he posts and the stuff that, say, Aubrey Marcus posts. Aubrey Marcus posts a lot of inner reflection and ways that he could be better, ways that we can be better, ways that we can like strive for more, you know, stepping into our potential as a human being. Whereas what I see in Josh Fox's posts are really projections of what he hates about the world. I don't think that we should push back heavily against people who do that, who project, because projection is also a natural aspect of our psychology, but it's when it's not in balance. So I still follow Josh, and I still say that I like this cat because I don't feel like he is without a soul, and I don't feel like he's without any reason at all. And he helps me, at least I'm able to witness what I disagree with, but what I still have enough respect for, because this is the guy that made Gasland, excellent film. I have enough respect for him that I'm still following him. You know, I almost throw up in my mouth when I see some of his posts because it seems dehumanizing, a lot of the ways that he speaks. But I wanted to use this as an example, and I don't want to rant for too long on this. I wanted to use this as an example of how we can reach across the aisles, and not just the political aisles, but the aisles that seem, the man-made aisles that separate ideology from ideology, that cause us to hate one another. Literally, we hate people that we've never met online because we can't see the human in people that we disagree with. So I wanted to use that as an example of, like, I disagree with so much that Josh Fox says, but I still love that cat, and I would protect his right to say what he wants to say. I've pushed back on his words, and it hasn't really gone well for me. His followers usually they attack me. One of them just says, "Ben, everything's a conspiracy to you," and I'm just like, no, not true. There's a bunch of conspiracies I don't agree with, but I see your point. So,
yeah, I mean, it's tricky when you really gotta. We live in a day and age where you really gotta be mindful of essentially the battles you choose. Like, is this really worth my time? Because there's a lot of people who want to get in arguments right now because it's not even that they want to get in an argument. It's just a sense. I think it's out of a sense of loneliness too. You know, it's a lack of community. When you have community, when your life's going well, when you have meaning, when you have purpose, when you have things fulfilling you, you don't look for random arguments. You don't go around doing these things. You know, these, like you said, these are projections of unhappy people, and hurt people hurt people. So if you're traumatized and you're abused and you're hurting, okay, valid. No one's taking that away from you. But by projecting that hurt, you're just hurting more people, whether you know it or not. And in their minds, they don't see it that way. This is how it all works. You know, it's in their mind, it's validated, it's rational, it's righteous. But ultimately,
they want a better world, but they feel the way forward is to attack it.
Right. Well, because they feel
that's what I'm at least picking up from it.
And
I'm trying not to fill in the blanks in their head. But like,
no, I mean, it is very much, it's a militant, there's a militancy to both sides right now. And I refuse to be involved in that, whether it's, you know, Antifa or Proud Boys. They're the most extreme versions of this, but there's many iterations of it that aren't actually smashing windows, but it's just as vicious of friends and neighbors in cul-de-sacs and suburban communities and cities all over the country. And it's a lot of this is, when you really step back, I don't think people really feel this way about their friends and neighbors. They've been exploited and played by these larger forces. You know, this cable media, this is the whole thing we're saying, is this sensationalist, this militancy. It started because more and more of the content and the things these people are watching and their bubbles of their informational diet, basically we're saying provocative shit to say, hey, aren't you pissed? Aren't you mad? Go fuck up that liberal, that libtard. Or, hey, aren't you mad at that stupid racist Trump supporter? Shouldn't you go? And they're like, get mad, go out and attack, like get militant. You know, that's the message that a lot of these people are seeing. In order to say you're a good warrior, you know, to them, it's like, I'm standing up for my tribe and I'm fighting the other tribe and I'm going to come home a conqueror and I'm going to show my friends, hey, look, I kicked this guy's ass. I showed him what's up on Twitter. I dunked on him, or whatever fucking metaphorical or physical thing. But it's like, dude, this is just basics tribalism. And you're just feeling.
And tribalism is all about belonging. I mean, I think that's
exactly
like
that's what they truly want.
Yes. Yeah, that our society is bred And I'm not going to blame it on specific individuals, even though there are I mean, like, you can't just say everybody has equal power when literally a 0.01% of the population can turn this planet into a nuclear wasteland overnight.
Yeah.
You can't say everybody has equal power. Not that that is power that is always used, but just the threat of that. You can't say everyone's on equal ground. But what I was getting at was, we're living in a society that it's by its very nature, we feel alien to it. We feel disconnected from nature. Our inner nature feels that something's up. This isn't right. This isn't natural. So we are hungry. We're starving, ancestrally starving for a belonging, a feeling, a sense of belonging. And what we're given as the easiest, lowest hanging fruit of categories and demographics of belonging are these pit tribe against tribe. The same way that, the way De Beers got diamonds out in Africa was, you fund one group with money and guns, and they kill off a bunch of the others, but in return, what they're doing is mining diamonds and sending them back to De Beers.
Yeah.
And then before the one side is completely annihilated, then you just flip the polarity. You give the other side guns and money, and you start taking the guns and the money away from the other side, so they don't completely annihilate each other, but you're just pitting one warring tribe against another for what? For fucking diamonds, which are actually not as scarce as you would imagine.
Right.
And so anyway, this is the belonging thing that I wanted to bring up. And like, what I would say to the audience, this is already an audience that I think has this sensibility, but you do belong, and nobody can give you your belonging. And in fact, the best, most healthy expression of your belonging is not fitting into a pre-digested category out there.
Right.
It's intentionally building bridges between warring factions. And we're going to get Daryl Davis on this show. I know, Gordon, you've been asking me about this, but I just talked to him by phone. We're going to get Daryl Davis on the show in June. He said he's available. Daryl Davis is a big black blues musician that went to KKK rallies, went to neo-Nazi rallies, watched them burn crosses, and, was sitting with people who literally hated him without knowing him just because of the color of his skin. And what did he do? He opened up the dialogue. He built bridges. He didn't sit there and point his finger and judge the other side. He just asked questions. He opened up the dialogue. And in that, without even directly trying, he was more successful in converting people out of the Ku Klux Klan and out of being a neo-Nazi than anybody else, and especially anybody else who's pointing the finger and yelling and screaming, because that helps the tribalism.
It doesn't de-radicalize you. I mean, bottom line is, we have a lot of people radicalizing people, and we need to do a lot of de-radicalizing now. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, healing. But it's healing. I mean, and ultimately what de-radicalizing is healing. It's saying, hey man, even if you disagree, this is still a human being. I mean, I've seen I haven't looked, and I kind of not looked at all the stuff that happened in Texas. I saw the Breakpoints thing, but from what I heard, some of the tweets they're saying, it really saddens me how nasty people are being on both sides to use this event as a political talking point, or to try to just take it out of context, and so we've gotten to a pretty low point as a species morally in a lot of ways on both sides, and we got to own that, because we're so tribalized that we don't give an F about being mean, about being unethical, about saying something nasty, because it's well, he said it, so I should. It's okay, cool, bro. Cool. What are you, 5? Is this really the mature way to handle this? When did we all become little kids and just want to, because he threw shit at me, I should throw shit? Who's going to be the adult in the room? And it's
a hard question, because there are a bunch of children, and I will include myself.
I've done it. Sure.
The way that my kids can get under my skin, I'll be honest with y'all, I'm not a fucking adult sometimes, right? And so many of us, and especially when you watch presidential debates, what you would imagine would be the most proper, the most well-presented people, has deteriorated into literally influencer-based, just trash talking. Yeah. And this is not maturity. And so this is an example that we can show is just take any political debate in the past 20, 30 years, and especially the ones with Ron Paul. When Ron Paul, probably the most mature candidate I've seen yet, I mean, I could probably say
Tulsi
somewhat
was
the same
really
for
mature
Tulsi
to me.
Gabbard.
Yeah, she was really mature.
And there were
Politics
other
aside, but just
Huckabee was great,
yeah,
but just not. He
demeanor.
didn't exude leadership. But when you see Ron Paul up there, and there's McCain and Mitt Romney snickering at him, rolling their eyes on national television, like that's when you're like, damn, this is a junior high level group of people, except for Ron Paul.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep railing on this. What I do want to say is there's that one thing that we want to hop into Davos, and there's that one thing that I sent you on Davos. It was all the private jets.
In the chat here? Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
That might be okay. That one I think did work. I think I should be able to show that one.
Yeah.
That one is the image.
There.
I can make it bigger too.
Higher Side Chats posted this. We had Greg Carlwood on a while back. Great guy. A record 1,500 private jets have arrived at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland to discuss what they can do about your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Like
it's hypocrisy.
It is pretty interesting that, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I still take flights. I still drive, and like I have a bike. I bike whenever I can, but I'm in America. Like if I want to bike, I would literally have, you know, retardedly strong legs, but I wouldn't get anything done. I wouldn't be able to edit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not practical. I mean, and this is the whole thing that Leonardo DiCaprio himself even realized. Like first it was like, okay, change your light bulb, stop using less, you know, dryers or washers, whatever things. And then they're like, wait, this is actually not going to have nearly enough of an impact, like barely any, to statistically impact it to the way we need. And I mean, I just got to the point where I'm like, yeah, and like everyone knows electric cars, all that's great, but like, how do we run the grid? So, you know, it was a long journey for me, but you know, I'm at the point where it's got to be, you know, we've got to go hard on nuclear energy using modernized, safer, better nuclear, small modular, there's micro, modular, and there's large ones. And then having a mix of weaning off oil and going towards more, you know, whatever's best for your area for, you know, renewables, whether it's tidal, wind, solar, you know, there's a lot of issues, but nuclear is the big thing. We've got to, especially people on the left, you know, they've got to really see the new data and understanding of it. Because I used to be more anti-nuclear until I got educated on it. But
yeah,
we can have a clean.
You said about electric cars. Have you seen the amount of raw materials that need to be mined for these batteries? It's orders of magnitude more than traditional cars. And I'm not making a case for traditional cars. This is, you know, that's the easiest way you could straw man what I'm saying right now, is that I'm all for fossil fuels. And of course, there's a better way forward. I think you touched on one, and there's suppressed inventions everywhere. Did you know, actually, man, Tim Pool just posted on this. He was a guy that was involved in one of the shootings. I think he was one of the African guys that had just got African-American fellas that just got shot and killed. He had a YouTube page where he was working on a car that ran on water. And he was like, conspiracy theorists are going to go wild with this one. But like, if everyone here has heard there have been suppression of these technologies. So like, but
There's
just
levels.
looking at even the electric cars, how like, the PR campaign of how this is going to save us and everything. For one, it will EMF fry you far more than a traditional car. I think, again, orders of magnitudes more. You're driving down the road in an electric car, there's far more EMFs, and there's going to be an issue with that. So I'm not saying I have the answer.
Yeah, I mean,
nuclear cars coming anytime soon.
I mean, ideally, we want the, you know, anti-grav, cool alien tech, right? But until that's undisclosed to us and all the cool, like, you know, Lockheed Skunkworks type things, you try to do the best you can with what you have, and obviously you push at the same time for those things to be disclosed. But there's pros and cons to everything. You know, there's a benefit and a cost to everything. You know, you get an iPhone, it's amazing, but yeah, there's Foxconn, people committing suicide because of the work hours, and like you said, mining the minerals. You know, all these people who think they're so virtuous. Like, look on your. This is not some like totally virtuous. Like, so everything has some element of immorality or ethics to it. We can reduce and try to get better and better at making it so there's less and less of that and minimize it. But I think why that doesn't occur a lot of times is because of the profit incentive. Because I can make this safer, but it costs me money, and I could just keep it more dangerous and cut corners. So there's these levels to it, and that's conscious capital and all this. But staying on track with Davos, we've got a clip from our peeps over at Breaking Points, Crystal and Cigar, and this is talking about one of the key things they're bringing up at Davos. Surprise, surprise. One of the big things they're wanting to go after at Davos is free speech. So we're gonna hit on some of the key points.
What are you looking at?
Well, to start with, I just want to say this is not a low IQ conspiracy theory monologue about.
You got to qualify it.
In fact, I think the dumb conspiracy theories about Davos and the World Economic Forum have done more damage to people who want to legitimately describe how dystopian the Klaus Schwab Great Reset theories and economic agenda really are. This is actually a global elite of billionaires who are planning, not secretly, but in reality, out in the open.
I want solar panels on my home, but they're too expensive.
I get so many solar panel ads. It's solar panels. Dude, every single ad now is a solar panel ad. Everyone.
At least we're not seeing, like, Viagra things pop up on your...
Or the mud water. Dude, what's in your drink? I'm drinking mud.
All of us, they're revealing their ideology in all of its glory. The ideology is masked in similar terms as the Great Reset, grand language, grasping for changing the world, and masked always in responsibility. It takes finesse to see it, to read past it, and to realize how crazy a lot of it really is. And that's what I've been thinking about now, especially over the last day or so, as I saw separate instances that reinforce just how important it is to protect America from these people, and how, when I say things about how in Europe and in Australia they are only free to a certain extent, and then those people get upset, how this really proves my point. We're going to start with Julia Inman Grant. She is the so-called e-safety commissioner for the country of Australia, speaking on a panel yesterday titled Ushering in a Safer Digital Future. Let's take a listen to what she says about free speech.
We are finding ourselves in a place where we have increasing polarization everywhere, and everything feels binary when it doesn't need to be. So I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online, from freedom of speech to the freedom to, to be free from online violence, or the right of data protection.
Recalibration of freedom of speech. Fundamentally, that is the mindset that dominates.
These are the Machiavellian terms. Just to stop real quick. Compliance, recalibration. When you hear these terms, that's not a good thing. I mean, when Davos is saying it, like if it's your HR person at work, that might be different. But recalibration of free speech. So that shows, you got to read between the lines with these kind of things. That shows they are seriously, as part of their agenda now, they want to go after free speech. They are going to use terms like recalibration and these Machiavellian terms to try to justify being sort of the nanny state, as you would say, saying we need to censor these things for you so that, we're protecting you, or whatever BS line. Luckily, though, we saw the disinformation board was shot down. That gave me a lot of hope to be like, all right, people not lost it. Like, they did not want to do this Orwellian misinformation board with a super cringy woman running it, and I think we're gonna push back, but they're trying. I mean, this is just for people to know the blueprint, so to be aware when you see the subtle signs, and you see now it happens here, and then it gets passed out to the little global leaders. We know all the different ones in Canada, all over. So just be wary. We'll play a little more for you.
The entire non-Western world, except here, where they do not have a First Amendment codified into their constitution. Their systems of law say you have freedom of speech within the boundaries that they get to decide. Those that they do get to decide give the government overwhelming power then to police their citizens, to crack down on dissent, to shut down the media, and as we saw in Australia during COVID, literally throw their citizens into camps for testing positive for a virus, which was probably not going to kill you. Watching that mindset pervade the richest and most powerful people in the world at Davos is important because it underscores just how much of the current elite liberal regime in America desperately wants to import European-style thinking and security laws to our shores to get around the First Amendment. A perfect example of that thinking was actually Twitter before Elon Musk became involved. Parag Agrawal, he's the CEO of Twitter, explicitly said before he took the job that his job was, quote, not to be bound by the First Amendment. He said instead that harm reduction, which is a buzzword of these people, was the overall goal of the platform.
Another key buzzword, everyone, harm reduction.
That started in the psychedelic community.
What?
Harm reduction.
Oh, yeah. It's a useful word to, you know, make it seem like you're virtuous.
Harm reduction.
I know that this is the whole Machiavellian modern day propaganda. It's like we need words that make you seem like you're an asshole if you disagree. Like you don't believe, like you don't. The audacity.
And what's harm? Speaking your mind. Or speaking something that's true to your values, even. Yeah, I just sent you something because he mentioned the thing about Australia.
Okay.
Are you able to pull that up just for a second?
This
is from Benny Johnson, which is I feel like Benny he's very on the right. He's very pro-Trump and everything like that. And I follow him mainly just to kind of see what to kind of track what's going on over there.
Let's see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, see if you can pull that up. It's basically a Twitter thread that he just reposted. All right, you got it?
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to see if I can read that. Oh yeah. So Tim Pool says, "I'm going out and buying a bunch of guns," and you know, this was right after the shooting, and so, man, I'm having trouble getting this full screen. You want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah. So Benny, I believe Benny reposted this, I guess, or
yeah.
So Tim said, "I'm going to buy more guns today." Cornsey said, "I'm an Australian, and I would like to ask, why do you need guns?" Anthony Pasito said, "So we don't get locked in camps for having a virus with a 99.9% survival rate."
So Australia had their guns taken away. And I'm not even suggesting that if they were to have not had their guns taken away, that the whole thing with them getting put in camps wouldn't have happened. But I'm not saying the opposite of that either. Let me just put it that way.
It's leverage. I mean, it's about leverage. We don't know for sure, but the leverage of, and yeah, I've had evolving whole views on Second Amendment things, and it's a very nuanced and tricky one for a lot of people.
It really is, because did you see the one of I'm forgetting the professional sports coach that kind of went off.
No.
You didn't see what I won't even go too deep into it, but it was a sports coach his team was about to go out and play, and he spent his entire time talking about why won't there's a handful of states or maybe senators that he was talking about saying that, like, all they got to do is bring it to a vote on universal background checks. And I'm not opposed to background checks. I'm not even opposed to psychological checks. And I just actually saw when we were getting ready for this, there was one of the Sandy Hook fathers, the fathers of one of the kids from Sandy Hook, saying my kid was killed with an AR-15. It's an assault rifle, and within, I forget what he said, 4 minutes, like 20 kids died. I'm sorry, I'm getting the numbers wrong. But there was just something interesting about the way he was saying that, and he was just like, we need to get Congress to stop the sale of assault rifles. And I had to pause, because I try not to just go with my gut, which has been informed by my past and the people that I've been around. I try and really see people's points. Should there be a ban on assault rifles being sold? And I really paused, and I was thinking, I don't think so. I don't actually think. And Sam Tripoli just posted something. He was like, name the last thing that was banned that ever went away. And he said, I'll wait. And what was the last thing that a country has ever banned that actually went away, didn't just reconfigure where it shows up?
It's illegal. I mean, you can get illegal guns very easily still. But yeah,
so,
you
don't have to go deep into the Second Amendment thing. It was just like, that was also one of those moments for me that it's, I have close friends that have very different views than I do on the Second Amendment. They think all guns should be taken and out of our hands. And to me, I'm like, I absolutely get the sentiment, but I feel and sense where that sentiment is incomplete. That sentiment feels that actually it's coming from the hope and the wish parading as the knowing, the absolute convinced knowing that if you were to take guns out of the hands of those who would willingly give their guns up if the laws change tomorrow, that would actually stop the violence that we're seeing. And I just don't have the same level of conviction that those people do.
Well, it's just not grounded enough. I mean, like it's idealism versus realism to a certain degree.
It's emotional.
Yeah, and it's emotional. I mean, it's just, and I don't want to get too lost in the whole gun rights and the shooting, but basically, from what I've seen, is the law enforcement really fucked up in this specific town in Texas. Really, the Border Patrol guys are the ones who came in and were like, all right, we're going to go in, we'll do this, because they had the tactical training. But a lot of these guys, they waited almost an hour while the shooter was barricaded in the classroom. All the parents were screaming at the police, why aren't you going in? Why aren't you taking, like, this is your job to protect and serve. And they're like, well, we're securing the perimeter, all this BS. They had a taser on one of the dads who was trying to go in with his other fellow dads. And really, it was just this complete failure of the police. There was plenty of good guys with guns, so to speak. It wasn't like there's a lack of guns there. It was just terrible police training from their front. And the underlying thing with all these shootings, too, is it's super mental health. I mean, this kid had serious mental health issues. There was a lot of indicators before this that he had mental health issues. And why aren't we dealing with the root more of the mental health too? And it's a lot of mental health. It's crimes of, it depends on the situation. Context is so important. All these things. When it comes to school shootings, though, it's usually very disturbed individuals who have serious mental health issues. And yes, access to guns and all that's a part of it. And we can talk about things we can do easily on the margins, like gun rights and things like universal background checks. But how do we really help
diagnose it? I feel like that's what you're getting at, is just like what I see out there are oversimplified diagnoses of the problem and oversimplified remedies.
It's like homelessness.
Which are carte blanche, like, as extreme as you can get. Yeah. And it's understandable because the level of severity of why these conversations come up. So maybe that's as much as we say on that. But I know we're already past the hour. How do you want to wrap this one up then, Gordon?
Let me so we hit on the speech in Davos. I don't know if you saw, but they were detaining, this was, I think, a person from Jack Probizak, I forget his name. He's a popular sort of right-wing person outside Davos, was detained, and they did some sketchy stuff already outside with detaining people.
Can I ask you why you're detaining this journalist?
See Jack in the background.
Is it we're not able to report here?
Excuse me?
Okay. Can I ask you guys why
you
you're
can
being
you
detained?
can you please stop filming, then we can talk.
Why do I need to stop filming?
Because I ask you to. It's my personal right, because I don't like to be filmed, and it's a right in Switzerland. If I don't want to be filmed.
But can I ask why he's being detained then? I won't point the camera at you then.
Hi, Mark Bart.
So you're already seeing shady stuff happening around Davos as well.
That's the father just saw from Sandy Hook. Interesting. Before, but right there,
okay. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, there's an ad right after it. And lastly, we don't have to touch on this, but obviously this is my bread and butter. I'm all about UFO guys. I'm the local alien buff. And we had this big congressional hearing. It's been 50 years since we had a public one, a type of Project Blue Book style one. So it was a lot of a nothing burger, which I think a lot of people in ufology expected. But we did have a few interesting little things mentioned. Some of the key things.
It's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP.
Let's find some of the key
ones. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the department's contention that by combining appropriately structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and, if necessary, mitigated. With regard to the importance of transparency, the department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people. However, we are also mindful of our obligation to protect sensitive sources and methods. Our goal is to strike that delicate balance, one that enables us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel.
So I could touch a few things, but basically, though, they were very careful with their words. There's a lot of plausible deniability by these guys being the face, but it's going to be interesting now that we have an official committee or group within the government to study and respond to these things, so that pilots and various military officials have a formal reporting process. But I'll keep an eye on it for us because I love it. But it's cool, man. At least we're talking about it more. There's a lot of people speculating on both sides of like, I think they're obviously not showing us all the good stuff, but hopefully more public pressure. If some new event occurs that they can is within their sort of coverage, could really blow things up. Kind of like a Nimitz event or TikTok. A modern, one happening like this summer or something again. But we'll see. It's exciting, but yeah,
You got Jeffrey Cummings asking in the chat, who would Gordon most like to see testify this summer?
I mean, a lot of people want to see the pilots. So obviously the people who have been really like Commander Fravor and people who have been really actually at the scenes to give witness testimony, and they're super credible witnesses. I mean, a lot of people Joe Rogan's had on, bring on Travis Walton, bring in Bob Lazar. Like, whether you believe them or not, they're swearing under oath. So if they're lying, it's under oath. So that's, a little more pressure. But I mean, Danny Sheehan, great lawyer. There's a lot of people in this space who are credible. I think it's just really credible people to start with who can really just be like, look, this is undeniable. And if they have some sort of evidence or thing to back up their testimony, even better. But yeah, we'll see. Because I don't know.
Yeah, man. I think we touched upon a lot of topics today, and I'm glad we ended with something a little.
We always got the aliens, man. They're always there in case.
End with aliens. It doesn't matter where you start, as long as you end with aliens. Yeah, man. I guess maybe the last thing that I want to even just ask you, Gordon, is where do you see it taking the world if, like, let's say there was an avalanche of disclosure? Where do you see that taking the world in a very quick manner? Like, do you think we're going to see new kinds of arguments for globalization, one world government, that kind of stuff, as far as protection and cautionary measures, or I don't know, excuse for more bots, more drones, more tech, explosion, to kind of police perimeters? And what would you say if there was an avalanche of disclosure and most people's minds are just kind of blown?
Okay. So I was thinking a little different. You're saying if our government disclosed things, but not necessarily if say an advanced species was like openly contact. No, you're just saying if we on our end. I mean, it seems like right now what they're really trying to do is slowly unscrew the lid while maintaining minimal accountability for all the effed up stuff they did before this, with suppressing it with unethical experiments or whatever shady stuff they've done in this subject area of suppressing new physics for scientists to figure out and implement. I mean, when Eric Weinstein really realized this was a new version of physics, when he really looked at the videos, and there's a great video on our space text channel and Discord I highly recommend for everyone. If you go to the pins section in the top right, you can see all the specific videos I've curated for each text channel. So this is on there, but people like Eric Weinstein are critical, or in general, what I'm trying to say is people who are physicists or scientists especially realizing this is not only a new technology, it's a new physics. So we're going to have a whole entire new field of physics. And I think that will also come with a new understanding of consciousness and this deeper understanding of spiritual connection, all points in space and time being connected, as Ben Rich said, for skunk work. So when you understand all points in space and time are connected, and you can work with these new assumptions within physics and mathematics and these things that they need for engineering, then you create new technologies. But at the same time, there's this sort of dribbling out effect into society of what the implications of this are, culturally, spiritually. So it's immense power in a lot of ways, but it's also immense freedom. And they want to give us the bare minimum to basically say we have some advanced, maybe alien reproduction vehicles, or we know that they're out there. But for me, once they do start to really give us some of the bigger, they've done some pretty big drips, but the really big one that like these are basically extraterrestrials, like full stop. Then I think it's going to be hard for them to still try to pull off this drip partial disclosure agenda. Then it's going to be people are just, I think the public pressure and the scientific community especially are really going to just, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. So it's going to affect everything in society. I mean, I've said it when I really, really grokked and understood that this was real, and I had my own personal experience with a sighting, multiple ones. It's gonna change everything to some degree. Some things more than others, but I think it's for the better overall because it makes us feel more of a community to our galactic brothers and sisters. It makes us feel more of a connection to source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, God. And honestly, yes, I'm not trying to be naive. Yes, there's certain players who want to wield this as a weapon. They want to create a war in space with this new threat, this perpetual war in space. But I trust in the people, and I believe that I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off. I just don't see people buying that. I mean, yes, there's some negative ETs out there, but I really am optimistic with humans. Once they're given a little more context, they really do step up. It's only when things are omitted and when they're kept in the dark is when they fuck up, because they're not given the full facts. And so I don't judge them, but when they get a lot more of the facts, we tend to make usually a good decision, So this is speculation. Nobody knows, but to me, this is why it's the most important topic to me, because it will change everything. And but you got to be patient, because it could be next week nowadays, or it could be 50 years and they drag this out. But we'll see.
Yeah, man. I like to stay open to everything. And with that being said, Renegade posted in the chat, I don't like just ignoring these things. Even sometimes they feel a little out of left field. But Renegade said, "Do you believe we live on a spinning ball when we can see the sun and moon up in the sky at the same time?" Let me just answer that by saying I think both models, the flat Earth and the spinning ball model, you can make sense out of seeing the sun and the moon up in the sky. So I'm not really sure where you're going with that, Renegade, but I want to at least honor it by saying it on the show. I would say with that, I was just in Austin filming. I was being filmed for the upcoming Plandemic film, and they get a lot of emails. I mean, there was 1 billion views on that first film. They get a lot of emails, and one of them said, I forget exactly, I just overheard them talking about it. Somebody said, though, like, the only thing we need to prove is that we're not on a spinning ball. And here's what I would say. I don't push back against the different model, because the thing is the model that we are, on a spinning ball with a bunch of other spinning balls, all spinning together, hurtling through empty space, is a model. And that's fine. That's a fine model. And I do think it explains a lot. The flat Earth model, I haven't heard anything like all the anomalies that I've heard people mention as far as like, well, how do you explain this and how do you explain that? There are a lot of anomalies, but none of the anomalies that I've seen prove that we're on a flat plane with turtles all the way down. And I'm not saying that everyone believes that specifically. And when I say turtles all the way down, that's a Native American mythology. Like,
the turtle on the back.
What are we living on? A turtle. Well, what's beneath that turtle? Another turtle. It's turtles all the way down.
Turtles on turtles, son.
And but I guess the main point that I wanted to bring up here is really driving into the root of how do we arrive at being the best human we can, and to even take out that word human. How do we become the best version of ourselves? If it's proving an external objective reality like flatness or curvature, then I don't want to take away other people's feeling that is the most important thing that we need to be talking about. the thing that I've noticed in that is I don't yet see, I do see how if we were to find out that we're living on a flat plane, damn, we've been lied to. Holy shit, we've been lied to by more people than we could imagine. But I think people are already waking up to the fact that we've been lied to. We already know we've been lied to. And in many ways, you just take a look at the most common conspiracies that are out there. People are hip to them, but there's nothing that's changing. You know, there doesn't seem to be much that's changing. I guess that's the last part that I really want to say is like, I'm all for people that want to change the narrative of what the collective mythos, the collective story that binds us all together. If for you it's the shape of the earth, then I support you, and I would say come to the Discord. And you know, I know that there are people. Spakeface, I think, is one of them that on our Discord that is deeply into this. And I would say every time he converses with me, he's at least chill, you know. And you know,
I gotta push back a little there because it's
with him.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, and this is what I found. Whatever you believe, man, like, don't be a dick. Like, and that's, unfortunately, I found out with a lot of this community, the flat earth community. There's a lot of militancy. It's like being an angry vegan. You know, I don't care what your thing is, but it's how you say it. It's not what you say. And there's a lot of just frustration and animosity that I get from that community, because I'm sure all the time they're being told, you're silly, this isn't true, and some sort of ridiculing statement. So they're very defensive. They're very on guard to be ready to fight a lot, it seems like right away. So even if somebody who's open-minded, it's like, why are you so aggressive?
Well, so take the Josh Fox thing.
Exactly, it's the same type of thing.
I still say he is welcome on our Discord, Josh Fox. Even though I disagree with, you know, not just the things that he says, but the way he decides to say them. And I have seen that in Flat Earth community, but I see it in every community that there are the noisiest ones are the ones that will call you a stupid piece of shit if you don't believe exactly what they believe. And I see that that's something that's not just in the Flat Earth community or in any other community. I see it's a part of human nature. It's the squeaky wheel. It's the noisiest people who they want to validate what they believe so much that they end up destroying relationships in the pursuit of it. That's the main thing that I want to say. But what actually the main thing that I want to say is you are welcome on our Discord. You are welcome in this community. And yes, there are things that you could do to destroy that relationship that has more to do with your character than the things that you believe in. Right. That's really what I want to say. And maybe that's the ultimate point of even the whole Josh Fox thing is you are welcome, and I will have patience with you as well. As much as I get annoyed by the angry vegan thing, I also understand that what they're looking at all day is very inhumane treatment of millions, if not billions and billions of animals every single day. The most inhumane, destructive behavior towards Mother Nature that you could imagine. So do I understand angry vegans? Absolutely. Do I understand angry flat earthers, angry conspiracy theorists, angry people in general? Absolutely. You are welcome. I will have patience with you, but it's not endless, because the point that I'm trying to make, and the point that I believe that Gordon, where we collide, where we really find our synergy, is there's a solution to what's happening in the world that's deeper than any specific ideology. It has more to do with how we resonate and harmonize as a species. I don't give a fuck what you believe. You can still find harmony. Roger Waters did not like the rest of the band of Pink Floyd, but they still made harmony. Stewart Copeland and Sting, they butted heads like that all the time. But despite that, they still found a way to make harmony. That's what I believe is the most important here. So that's my.
It's creative friction, and it's creative friction. I mean, dude, like, I love the diversity on this planet. We are such a dynamic, cool species with so many different things happening within culture. But like, what happened to this idea of loving the diversity and not in this new woke term, but like the mixing pot? You know, the idea of like, all these different flavors make it so much more cool and dynamic. And you don't have to agree on everything, but at least it's a different flavor added to the overall mix to where you get a really dynamic species. And we've turned from like looking at those flavors as a good thing and like, oh, you're different, that's cool, let's like vibe off just this sort of like riffing, to like, now it's different, let's fight. You know, it became, let's not mix, let's like separate. You're a vanilla, I'm a strawberry, I'm a, you know, it's like, dude, no, we're all, what happened to mixing together? And that's, we don't want that, guys. We want to be united. The powers that be, whether you believe that or not, you know, just generic corporations, if you want to go like real basic here, they want us in fear and they want us divided. They want us fighting each other and they want us divided. And they're a big force behind creating this division. And remember that. So when you're really getting angry at your brother or sister, you know, real life or metaphorically, just think about like, am I really serving myself and what's good, or am I serving some other interest and I don't realize it? And look, man, it's just like, the last thing I'll say is like, I have gotten played. We've all gotten played. I believe things that I realize now, like I did not believe. I believe like a certain person at Gaia who we had that I realize now was basically a charlatan. Like it happens, but like just owning it and moving forward is so much better than just being in denial and just resisting it because you identify with it. Once you kind of own it and be like, damn, all right, I got taken. I got, you know, I'll own that. I take that L. Just once you do though, it's so much fucking better. Moving forward and letting that BS go, I'm telling you, it's so much better. Like, don't stick in just because you want it to be true, because you have confirmation bias, or because your identity, you know, I've made this my tribe and a play. Like, it free yourself from those fucking shackles. You know, really just be mindful of that. And once again, it doesn't mean you still can't find community and people to bond with and create companionship with. It just might be, maybe you might find a little bit elsewhere for the time being, you know, but you know, we all deserve it. So, yeah.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. That was George Carlin, right?
I believe it sounds like Carlin.
Come on, no, it was.
I don't know. Okay.
For some reason, I was blanking on his name, Bob Marley, but so I was thinking was the most out there name I could come up with. George Carlin has got a pretty cool HBO series on him.
Yeah,
that guy was bucking the system.
Exactly.
And he was in the very first episode. He was saying, "I realized at a very early age that authority does not come from people in white lab coats or uniforms. It doesn't come from anyone outside. Authority only comes from within." That's what I want to leave this whole show on. Authority comes from within, and that authority does not depend upon your ideology. It can be fortified by it, but it does not depend upon your ideology. This is the kumbaya moment. We all can come together around acknowledging that we all have inner authority. And really, once you acknowledge that authority, it's a lot more about simply celebrating what you already have. That's where gratitude comes from. So with that being said, that's it. My head, I've been dealing with a headache for quite some time now, and I'm going to call it quits. I want to say thank you, Gordon, for pulling those things up that we could watch. Russell Brand, Breaking Points, Robert Moultrie, I think was the guy's name. Thanks for bringing that up. Everyone in the chat, I just want to say, I love you all. I really do. I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing a ton of people that are just constantly coming out, putting in their 2 cents, being a part of the community, being a part of the conversation. It doesn't matter if we don't have a guest. It's going to be Gordo and I doing Q&A on any weeks that we don't have a guest, but every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we're right here on YouTube, and we're also now streaming simulcasting on Twitch as well. And that will go to a few more places from there. But get involved in the Discord chat. Come on, Destiny Rocks. Get involved in the Discord chat. You know how to do it. You can work a computer. I believe in you. I want to see you on there. And I also want to see myself on there more. The community is what this all comes down to. Community is by far the most precious resource that we have. When we find a way to stop segregating ourselves from our community and hating on our community, then we will realize that is how we grasp our power, is by bringing it together in celebration and shared struggles in community. So with that being said, I love you all, and I'll catch you all next time on the Ben Stewart Podcast.